Hi guys, welcome to Small Farmer Life. Hope you're all having an awesome day. And today, guys, I want to talk about a problem I see people getting themselves into all the time when they first buy land, or maybe they've had land for a long time anyway, because people do this all the time and it becomes a problem and they don't realize it's becoming a problem until the problem becomes too much and it's too late. And that is people collecting a lot of crap because they've got the space to store that crap, and that crap never ever gets used. And before the person knows it, the person's got a problem. They become a hoarder and they don't even realise it because they thought they just had an attitude of that'll come in handy later on down the line, and it never ever comes in handy. Now, I'm not saying everything they collect doesn't become useful at some point, but it could be decades into the future before people actually use up the materials that they've collected, because they might collect materials out of skips, and I've said look in skips before, but only for materials that you're going to use and are used on a regular basis, not for all sorts of things that are never ever going to be used. And you see it all the time. You see vehicles parked up on people's land because it's broke down, and if you're not going to fix a vehicle there and then or in the next couple of weeks, it'll never ever be fixed and it'll just sit there rusting away on your land. And the same goes for weird materials. Materials that people might use now and then, might be left over from a building job, but are never used on a regular basis. Now, you might collect a few box profile sheets, maybe for shed roofs and that sort of thing, if you ever get a leak on a roof. But having 100 box profile sheets, you're best off selling them to somebody who can find them useful or wants to use them for the building at the building there and then use the money for something else, because people end up with a lot of money tied up in lots of little things that they'll never ever find useful. Now, I'm not saying that like rolls of fencing wire, stock fencing isn't going to be useful on a farm. Yeah, you can have a few rolls of stock fencing wire, you can have 2x2 timber that's used on a regular basis to build buildings, but not weird size timbers that you'll never ever use. Lots of weird things I see on people's land that they'll never ever use, and I see it stacked all over the place, and people don't understand just how much crap they'll accumulate because they've got the space to store it. They don't realise that they'll never ever use it, and that day'll never come when that bit of material or part will come in handy. It just never happens. And you see it all the time on YouTube videos where people start making videos to help other people live on the land, and then you look at the surroundings around them and you see old wagons in the background and lots of old metal that has got no use to anybody, with weeds growing through it, or a tree through the engine bay of a wagon that's been there for decades, and it just makes your land look really scruffy. And then it gets to a point where you can't tidy it up because it takes 10 men to tidy the place up in 3 weeks of solid graft because of what one man's collected over 30-40 years. Your family are trying to help you out, saying you need to clean this place up. You're resisting your family, and then the neighbours start complaining about you. They're getting the planning enforcement officer out. They're serving you with enforcement notices saying you've got 30 days or 3 months to clear the land. If you don't, they'll get a company in to do it, and then they'll bill you for doing it. And they will bill you, and you will pay it, because if you don't pay it, they'll take you to court, get a court order, so you're actually forced to pay it or you'll go to jail. And people need to understand that you'll save a lot more money by putting the money to use somewhere else than having it sat there rusting away or rotting away on your land or in a yard. Now, if you're going to store anything on your land for use on a later project later on down the line, then cover it and store it properly. Otherwise, it'll just rot away and rust away. And I see it all the time. I see things on land that I seen 10 years ago. I went to a friend's on the weekend and I seen these metal posts. I knew he had them, and I wanted about 3 of them to put on the front of my stables. And he's still adamant that he's going to use them. He hasn't used them in the last 10 years, and I don't think he'll ever use them, but they'll be sat there, and what'll happen is eventually he'll pop his clogs and his family will have to get rid of all the junk that he's collected. Now, I could have used those, and you might have friends that can use some of the materials that you've got on your land, and they might be asking you, can they have those materials, or can you sell them those materials? But you're resisting every attempt for those materials to be removed from your land. So if someone wants to buy them, you refuse. If somebody wants them, you refuse. you'd never ever use them, so they never ever get moved anywhere, and they eventually just end up rusting and rotting away into the land. And that's not something you want to be dealing with. Honestly, guys, you want to be using materials that you've got for buildings that you're building there and then. If you're not building a building, then don't store materials on your land that you'll never find useful. And when it's easy for me to sit here and say that you'll never find useful, because obviously some people have uses for different things, but a lot of things that people collect they'll never ever use. You see it all the time. Reels and reels of water pipe that will never ever get used and could easily be sold on Facebook Marketplace or eBay. Lots of tin sheeting that could be sold, but people just buy it and store it for no fucking reason whatsoever. They just do it and basically end up with a weird lifestyle where people are looking at and thinking, that guy's weird as shit. He's like Stig in the Dump, living in a junkyard, and all his neighbours think he's a weirdo. You don't want people looking at you thinking you're a weirdo because you live in a junkyard, like Stig in the Dump. I just remember that from when I was a kid. But he was a scruffy guy that lived in a junkyard, and it was a kids program. Not a very good kids program, but it was a kids program. So guys, if you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to subscribe, you should subscribe. Hit the subscribe button if you want to be notified of more upcoming videos. Hit the bell button. My name's Craig. You've been watching The Small Farm Life. Thanks again to all my patrons. Couldn't thank you guys enough. And YouTube members, really appreciate the support. Till next time, guys, make sure you take care of yourself. Most of all, take care of the family. Be genuine, guys. Bye for now. See you.